GNOME 50 is probably the most important release of GNOME in years. This video is dropping the same day that GNOME 50 is having its release, so this isn't going to be a review. There hasn't been time to review it yet, and I'm showcasing out features on development releases of GNOME 50. But we're just going to be discussing what is added and why this release is the most important release of GNOME, probably since GNOME 40. So let's go straight to what's new. I'll be testing this out on the GNOME OS nightly image right here. So let's sign in real quick. Damn, they have a new design language for their wallpapers, but that's not that important, just cool. So first off, the biggest change of this release that makes this so important is that this version of GNOME right here is Wayland only. There's no X11 support at all. It has been completely removed from the desktop. And this is a major milestone in this X11 to Wayland transition that Linux has been going through for the last 10 years or so, even longer than that. Wayland for a long time just hasn't been mature enough to actually be usable until about 5 years ago-ish and 3 years ago-ish if you are on NVIDIA hardware. And so with this release of GNOME, there's just no turning back. So the overwhelming majority of the things you're going to find in GNOME 50 are not user interface facing. A lot of this is just backend changes to sort of eliminate a lot of the weirdness that some people have had with Wayland, and it's mostly just a backend update, just trying to finish the Wayland transition and just finally rip the band-aid off, get it over with. So if we go over to display settings, first off, fractional scaling is now no longer experimental. So for those who don't know, if you had something like a 4K monitor, when you boot into GNOME, everything's going to be small because it's not ready for 4K. So you had to end up scaling things, but it didn't support fractional scaling. So kind of limited to 100% scaling or 200% scaling, which is just too big. This is 1080p, but still. So now with fractional scaling, we can actually set the scale to like 125, 133, 150, 166, instead of only having the option between 100 and 200. So this has been technically in GNOME for quite a long time, but it was always an experimental feature and would have a lot of weird issues. So this is finally something that is stable now, which means just very high DPI monitors are no longer going to be the crazy issue that they have been being on Linux. Additionally, and this is not something I can show off in this virtualized environment here, however, GNOME now supports variable refresh rate for much lower latency inside of GNOME, and it is no longer an experimental feature. It's now fully ready to go. And if you have variable refresh rate, things are just going to be a lot smoother, especially like animations and things. And the reason it's going to feel so much faster is because the desktop's actually going to be able to stay in sync with any changes made on the screen. So for a 60 hertz monitor, for example, instead of having an evenly distributed 1 second divided by 60, where your screen refreshes just a set amount of times, 60 times per second, now it can actually sync that to end up only updating the screen on your monitor when it's actually updated. And this actually will significantly improve battery life too on laptops, because it's not going to have to be updating the screen constantly when things are just staying like standstill, like when things are not moving on the screen. Now, another huge thing that Wayland has always been known for having problems with is going to be remote desktop. Well, now if you're using GNOME remote desktop, which I believe uses RDP, you can actually remote into the GNOME login screen, which is for the first time allowing full unattended access to a GNOME system on Wayland, where all your computer needs to be is just turned on, and then you can go into the login screen, log into your user account, and there we go. Now, this still isn't going to be a great remote desktop experience for everybody using Wayland, because for the RDP protocol, you have to set up a server on your computer and then port forward it to actually get it working on outside networks, for example. So if you want just an easy access anywhere type remote desktop experience, you still aren't going to be able to do that on Wayland, because the options for that, like TeamViewer, AnyDesk, RestDesk, still don't fully have native Wayland support with unattended access. But if you are willing to put in this work to get RDP working, this is now a very great option for remote desktop on a Wayland system. And one of the biggest barriers of entry to Wayland has finally been removed. Virtual monitor support is now significantly better supported, which means if you're trying to use like a headless remote desktop setup where you don't have a real monitor plugged in, now it's going to have monitor mode emulation, which means it can apply appropriate scaling to a monitor that is being streamed. And so this means that remote desktop sessions that are headless without a real monitor can now actually show content in a high DPI environment without any issues, which is another huge significant improvement for the remote desktop system. You're also going to get discrete GPU detection inside of GNOME 50. So if you're using a laptop that has, say, integrated graphics and an NVIDIA GPU, and you want the NVIDIA GPU to be used for high performance tasks like gaming, but then you want the rest of the laptop to run on integrated graphics for battery life, that is now finally a fully supported thing inside of GNOME 50. Additionally, there has been significant performance improvements if you're using a NVIDIA GPU, as they have figured out a way to unblock some of the time spent on NVIDIA rendering. Now let's quickly go through just some of the features that are user facing, because there are just a little bit. For one, there's a new text size slider within the GNOME settings app right here. So, oh god. Oh. This is still, like I said, I'm still on a development release. Now, inside the date and time settings, you can actually change what you want the first day of the week to be in your calendar. So some other cultures use different first days of the week than Sunday. So this is a good improvement for people who may need something like this. The thumbnail handling inside of Nautilus, the file manager, is going to be significantly faster now. There's also now case insensitive path completion in the file manager, so that's very helpful when you're trying to find something. And then they say that the search is supposed to be enhanced and smarter now. With that, why is this release so important? Well, for one, this is going to be shipped in Ubuntu 26.04 LTS, which means that a lot of Ubuntu users, especially like companies shipping Ubuntu that are always going to go with an LTS, this is the version of GNOME that they're going to be shipping for years now. Another thing is this release of GNOME kind of marks just the death of X11. Not only is X11 completely removed, but they just significantly improved the Wayland experiences in the GNOME desktop, and is doing work on fixing a lot of the things that has made Wayland unviable for certain use cases, especially remote desktop, as well as just some of the issues with fractional scaling and variable refresh rate that Wayland has always had. Those issues are completely gone, so a lot of people who have been having weird screen tearing bugs and things like that on Wayland, this release does a lot to address those types of issues. And so all of this has finally just put in all of the work required to make Wayland finally just a completely stable platform for a lot of people. And there's no going back now on X11 in the GNOME world. Let me know what you think of the new release of GNOME in the comment section below. And if you like this video, you might like my video about how 2026 is the year that X11 is going to die. And here's that video.